The office used to echo with power. The soft click of Taehyung's leather shoes, the commanding baritone of his voice, and the subtle shiver that followed whenever he entered a room. Ji and Jungkook remembered it all too well. But now, the air was different. Taehyung sat motionless in the wheelchair, gazing out of the massive glass window of his penthouse office. Once a towering figure, the CEO of Kim Enterprises had become a ghost of himself after the accident. An accident that took not only his ability to walk but also left a void in every space he used to occupy. And Jungkook, his secretary, had never left his side. Even when Taehyung pushed everyone away. Even when his longtime girlfriend left him after the diagnosis. Jungkook stayed. He fed him, changed him, wheeled him to therapy, learned how to read his silences and anger, and bore it all with a trembling heart that loved him in silence. He never said a word. Not when he saw Taehyung cry himself to sleep. Not when he had to clean up after him. Not when he realized he was falling in love. Because Taehyung had someone. Once. But Taehyung's girlfriend left the moment she realized he might never walk again. And still, Jungkook stayed. 2 years passed. Jungkook had grown thinner, quieter, but his heart never wavered. Taehyung recovered slowly, painfully, and the day he stood up on his own again, Jungkook had wept outside the hospital room in silent joy. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next. Taehyung called a meeting in the office after returning as the company's CEO. With trembling hands and a voice that sounded too composed, he announced, "I'm back. And I'd like to share something important. I'm engaged to my ex-girlfriend. We've decided to give it another try." Jungkook stood there in the corner of the room, smiling. Smiling so no one would see the way his heart cracked inside his chest. Because he had cared for him when no one else did. He had loved him without hope. And Taehyung never noticed. Or maybe he had, and chose to forget. The applause echoed through the office, polite and distant, as if the announcement wasn't cutting into anyone's soul. Jungkook clapped too. His fingers trembled, his throat tightened, but his face remained unchanged. A perfect mask, just like he had worn for 2 long years. He had mastered the art of hiding pain, especially when it was wrapped in love. He congratulated Taehyung that day, bowing respectfully as the CEO walked past him, no longer needing his wheelchair. No longer needing him. "You should take a few days off, Jungkook. You've done enough," Taehyung said softly, his voice almost kind. Enough? Had he really done enough? Jungkook bowed again, barely whispering, "Thank you, sir," before slipping away, heart pounding in his chest like a warning. He made it to the rooftop of the office building before he let out the sob he had buried since that morning. The sky above him was a gray, clouds hanging like they were about to cry too. He clenched the edge of the railing, held low. He remembered the nights he held Taehyung's hand when the pain was too much. The mornings he'd patiently feed him, speak to him gently while Taehyung snapped and told him to leave. He stayed. Every time, he stayed. Not because it was his job, but because he loved him. Deeply. Silently. Hopelessly. And now, he was just the secretary, the one who was never even a choice. Meanwhile, Taehyung sat in his office, fingers running along the edge of the ring box in his drawer. He didn't smile. Not really. The press conference was in a few days. His ex had accepted his proposal after years apart. Everything was back to the way it used to be, before the accident. But something felt off. The office felt colder. and Jungkook wasn't there. Taehyung frowned. He hadn't realized just how much silence filled the room without Jungkook's soft voice, gentle presence, and steady hands guiding him every day. He thought he'd feel triumphant. But all he felt was hollow. Later that night, Jungkook lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. He hadn't cried again. He didn't have the strength to. He reached for his phone, only to pause when he saw Taehyung's name light up in his notifications. Kim Taehyung, are you okay? Jungkook stared at the message. Why now? Why ask that now, after everything? His fingers hovered above the screen, then typed, "Jian Jungkook, I'm just your secretary, right? I'll be fine." He pressed send and turned off the phone. The message sat on Taehyung's screen like a slap. "I'm just your secretary, right? I'll be fine." He read it once, twice, then again, and again. And each time, it hurt more. Taehyung had always been good at suppressing emotion. That's how he survived the accident, the heartbreak, the endless pity in people's eyes. He built a fortress around himself, cold, polished, composed. But Jungkook was different. He didn't pity. He didn't leave. He stayed. He stayed when no one else did. He stayed through the anger, the helplessness, the nights you cried in silence. And he never asked for anything in return. Not even a thank you. Taehyung's hand trembled slightly as he placed the phone down. The ring box was still in his drawer, untouched. He had proposed out of fear. Fear that maybe he could only love someone from the past. That maybe trying again with his ex would make him feel whole again. But all it did was feel wrong. Especially when Jungkook wasn't beside him. The next morning, Jungkook didn't show up at the office. For the first time in over 2 years, his chair was empty. The coffee Taehyung liked wasn't on his desk. No calendar reminders, no quiet footsteps, no gentle voice reminding him of meetings. It was just silence. Taehyung tried to brush it off, but by midday, he was pacing the office. He called Jungkook. No answer. He messaged. No reply. He went to Jungkook's small apartment, and no one answered the door. Finally, he texted again. Kim Taehyung, come back. And for the first time, Jungkook replied. Jian Jungkook, why? So I can help you pick out your wedding suit. Taehyung stared at the message, chest tight. That was when it hit him. It wasn't just that he missed Jungkook's help. He missed him. His presence. His laughter. His quiet devotion. His eyes, always filled with something unspoken, something that looked a lot like love. How had he never noticed? Or worse, had he noticed and chosen to look away? Later that night, Jungkook opened his door to find Taehyung standing there. No assistant. No car. No umbrella, just rain dripping down his expensive coat. What are you doing here? Jungkook asked, voice flat. I came to see you. For what? An apology? It's fine, Taehyung. I was never expecting anything. Taehyung took a breath. You should have. Jungkook scoffed. I was your secretary. No. Taehyung stepped forward, voice shaking. You were the only person who stayed when I had nothing left. You held me when I couldn't even hold myself together. You made me feel like a person again when I wanted to disappear. Jungkook's jaw clenched, eyes glassy. But I wasn't enough, he whispered. Because when you stood again, you walked straight to her. Taehyung shook his head, rain mixing with the tears on his face. I was scared, he admitted. Of you. of what I felt, of what I owed you. I didn't think I deserved your love. Jungkook's lips parted, stunned. Who said I loved you? Taehyung smiled sadly. Your silence did. A pause. Then Jungkook finally said it, voice breaking. I did. I still do. And Taehyung stepped forward. Then let me earn it back. 16 months ago the hospital room was cold, but Jungkook's hand was always warm. Taehyung couldn't move much back then. He couldn't even feel his legs, and the doctors had given him statistics he refused to hear. What he did hear, always, was Jungkook. Good morning, Mr. Kim, Jungkook would say gently, brushing Taehyung's hair into place. I've brought your favorite banana milk. Taehyung hated being called Mr. Kim. He hated being weak, being a burden. But Jungkook never treated him like one. On the nights when the pain overwhelmed him, when the therapy didn't show progress, when the reality of being stuck in that sterile room crushed him, it was Jungkook who stayed by his side. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered one night, holding Taehyung's trembling hand. So you let me cry, break things if you have to. Just don't give up. Taehyung hadn't said anything. But that night, after Jungkook fell asleep in the chair next to his bed, Taehyung watched him for hours. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to say thank you. He wanted to say, stay with me, even after I recover. But he didn't. Because in his mind, he didn't deserve someone like Jungkook. Not after everything. Not when someone from his past was still waiting. So he shut himself off. 3 months before the recovery, Taehyung had taken his first step. Just one. And Jungkook had cried. Not in front of him, of course. He had smiled, the brightest, proudest smile Taehyung had ever seen. But when Taehyung was taken back to his room, he caught a glimpse of Jungkook outside the hallway, wiping his face with shaking hands. That moment should have told him everything. That wasn't how a secretary cried for a CEO. That was how someone in love cried. But Taehyung ignored it again. He kept his heart silent. Let his fears win. Present-day Taehyung sat in his car in front of Jungkook's apartment, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He remembered it all now. Every quiet act of love Jungkook gave him. Every moment he should have cherished, but was too afraid to hold on to. He whispered to the empty car, I remember, Jungkook. I remember everything, and this time, he wasn't going to forget. The letter of resignation felt heavier than it should have. It sat in Jungkook's bag, signed and sealed, as he stood at the airport gate waiting for his flight to board. He had accepted a new job overseas. A fresh start, far away from memories, regrets, and the aching echo of a love that never got its chance. He had done what was best for him. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. He proposed to her. He chose her. He saw me only as a caretaker. A shadow behind him. So why was his heart pounding? Why did the gate announcement feel like thunder in his chest? And why did he still wish Taehyung would come? Taehyung's car screeched into the arrivals lane. He didn't care that he ran 3 red lights. Didn't care that he was still in his sleepwear. Didn't care that he looked insane yelling at airport security. All that mattered was finding Jungkook before he left. Because he wasn't letting the man who saved him walk away. Not again. Inside the terminal Jungkook, the sound froze him mid-step. Jungkook turned. The entire terminal turned. And there, breathless, wild-eyed, soaking from the rain again, stood Kim Taehyung. Jungkook blinked in disbelief. Taehyung, I remember everything, Taehyung shouted across the hall, his voice cracking. I remember every morning you fed me. Every night you stayed. Every time you smiled even when I was cruel. He stepped forward. I remember how you cried when I took my first step. I remember how you held my hand when no one else would even touch me. Security started to move, but Jungkook held the upper hand. Taehyung kept going. I was a coward, Jungkook. I didn't think I deserved love. Didn't think I deserved you. That's why I clung to something broken instead of the person who built me back up, people whispered. Phones filmed. Taehyung didn't care. You were never just my secretary. You were my reason. You still are. Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. I'm leaving, he whispered. My flight. Then miss it, Taehyung said softly, standing in front of him now. Miss it, and choose me this time. A long pause. Just the two of them now, the world fading. Jungkook dropped his boarding pass and launched into Taehyung's arms. You took long enough, he whispered against his neck. I know, Taehyung murmured, holding him tight. But I'm here now. And I'm never leaving again. 2 years later, a small coastal town. A bookstore cafe. A golden retriever sleeping at the door. Inside, 2 men sit behind the counter, one typing a manuscript, the other rearranging poetry books. Babe, Jungkook says, sipping his coffee. Did you refill the banana milk? Taehyung smiles without looking up. Always, because now, Jungkook is no longer just someone who stayed. He's someone who was finally chosen. And Taehyung? He never forgot again.